You know that moment when you buy popcorn at the cinema and it costs more than your movie ticket? That's AMC's business model in one sentence. For over 100 years, AMC has been the biggest cinema chain on the planet. 900 theaters, 10,000 screens, the place where generations went to watch their favorite movies. Then, COVID closed every single one of those theaters overnight. Wall Street smelled blood. Hedge funds started betting billions that AMC would go bankrupt. And then something nobody expected happened. Reddit saved them. Millions of ordinary people bought the stock, drove it from $2 to $72, and made the hedge funds bleed. This is the story of the biggest save in stock market history. And what came after. AMC didn't start as a corporation. It started as a failed actor with a leased movie theater. In 1920, a man named Edward Durwood was traveling America with a tent show, performing for whoever would watch. At some point, he looked around, decided this wasn't working, and made a bet. He leased a single movie theater in downtown Kansas City, Missouri. Silent films were the biggest entertainment in the world at that point. People lined up around the block for them. Edward figured he'd get a piece of that. It worked. He opened a few more theaters through the 1920s and 1930s. Nothing spectacular. A small regional business in the Midwest that nobody outside Kansas City was paying attention to. Then, his son Stanley took over. Stanley Durwood went to Harvard, served as a navigator in the U.S. Air Force during World War II, came back to Kansas City in the 1940s, and joined the family business. And in 1961, when his father died, Stanley took control of a modest 10-theater chain and immediately started thinking bigger. His breakthrough moment happened the way most great ideas do, out of frustration. Stanley was standing in the lobby of his 600-seat Roxy Theater in Kansas City, staring at empty seats and bad numbers, when a thought hit him. What if instead of one big screen, he built two smaller ones? Same staff, same building, double the movies, double the revenue. That's how Stanley Durwood invented the multiplex, one of the most important innovations in entertainment history, born from a man staring at an empty lobby in Kansas City. In 1968, he renamed the company American Multi-Cinema, AMC. Then came stadium seating, megaplexes, IMAX partnerships, recliner chairs, dine-in theaters. Every decade, AMC reinvented what going to the movies meant. By 2017, after acquiring chains across America and Europe, AMC was the largest cinema company on the planet, with 900 theaters, 10,000 screens, and $5 billion in annual revenue. The kid from Kansas City had built a global empire. By the 2000s, AMC wasn't just showing movies, it was engineering experiences. The old cinema model was simple. Put a screen in a room, sell tickets and popcorn, repeat. AMC decided that wasn't enough anymore. They watched Netflix grow. They watched people buy bigger TVs. They understood that if the cinema was going to survive the living room, it had to offer something the living room couldn't. So they went premium. Stadium seating replaced flat floors. Recliner chairs replaced cramped rows. IMAX screens the size of buildings replaced standard projectors. Dine-in theaters let you order food and drinks without leaving your seat. The AMC Stubs loyalty program gave frequent moviegoers rewards, discounts, and eventually a monthly subscription, AMC A-List, that let you watch up to 3 movies a week for a flat fee. It was Netflix logic applied to the physical world. And it was working. Revenue grew steadily through the 2000s. The A-List subscription launched in 2018 and signed up 900,000 members in its first year. Hollywood was pumping out blockbusters, Marvel, Star Wars, Fast and Furious, that people genuinely wanted to see on the biggest screen possible. The living room TV had gotten bigger, but it still wasn't an IMAX screen. Then came the acquisitions. In 2012, Chinese conglomerate Wanda Group bought AMC for $2.6 billion, the largest Chinese acquisition of an American company at the time. Wanda wanted global entertainment dominance, and AMC was the crown jewel. Then, in 2016, AMC acquired Odeon Cinemas in Europe for $1.2 billion and Carmike Cinemas in the US for $1.1 billion. Three massive deals in 4 years. By 2017, AMC was officially the largest cinema chain on Earth. 900 theaters across the US, Europe, and the Middle East. 10,000 screens. $5 billion in annual revenue. Adam Aron, the charismatic CIO who had taken over in 2016, was on magazine covers talking about the future of the cinema experience. There was just one problem hiding inside all those acquisition numbers: debt. The Odeon deal added debt. The Carmike deal added debt. Operating 900 theaters across multiple continents added debt. By 2019, before anyone had heard the word COVID, AMC was already carrying over $5 billion in long-term debt. That number wasn't a crisis yet. The theaters were full, the blockbusters kept coming, and the interest payments were manageable. But $5 billion in debt is a weapon pointed at your own head. Everything is fine, right up until the moment something goes wrong. In December 2019, something went very wrong. March 2020. Every AMC theater on Earth closed simultaneously. Every single location, 900 theaters, 10,000 screens, zero revenue, overnight. The math was brutal. AMC was burning through $125 million per month with nothing coming in. No tickets, no popcorn, no A-list subscriptions being used. Just fixed costs, rent, staff, debt payments. Bleeding out into a void. The company had enough cash to survive a few months. Maybe. And nobody knew when theaters would reopen. The $5 billion debt load that had been manageable in 2019 became a death sentence in 2020. Every month of closure added another layer of financial pressure. AMC started negotiating with landlords for rent deferrals, cutting staff, and suspending dividends. Adam Aron was doing press interviews from his home, trying to project confidence while privately running out of options. By early 2021, AMC had roughly 2 weeks of cash left. Wall Street saw it clearly. Hedge funds started placing massive short bets against AMC, essentially betting billions of dollars that the company would go bankrupt. It wasn't an unreasonable bet. The fundamentals were terrible. The debt was crushing. Streaming had accelerated dramatically during lockdown. Disney Plus launched in late 2019 and signed up 50 million subscribers in its first 5 months. Netflix was adding subscribers faster than ever. HBO Max launched in 2020. People had spent a year learning to watch movies at home. Why would they come back? The short sellers smelled blood. AMC's stock dropped from around $7 in early 2020 to under $2 by January 2021. Every analyst had the same conclusion: this company was finished. And then the internet had other ideas. Wall Street Bets was a Reddit community that had started as a place for retail investors, ordinary people, not Wall Street professionals, to discuss stocks. In late 2020 and early 2021, the community had already orchestrated a short squeeze on GameStop that had blindsided hedge funds and made national news. Ordinary people had discovered that if enough of them bought the same stock simultaneously, they could force short sellers into catastrophic losses. They turned their attention to AMC. Within days, AMC's stock was moving. Retail investors piled in through apps like Robinhood, buying shares and options en masse. The stock went from under $2 in early January 2021 to $72 by June. From near bankruptcy to a market cap of over $25 billion in 5 months. The hedge funds that had bet against AMC were losing billions. Some folded their positions at enormous losses. Adam Aron, to his credit, understood exactly what was happening and leaned into it completely. He called the retail investors apes, their own term, and embraced it publicly. He donated $50,000 to the Deanne Fossey Gorilla Fund as a nod to the community. He gave AMC Stubs members free large popcorns as a thank you. He went on social media and spoke directly to the people saving his company. It was brilliant PR, and it worked. AMC used the meme-inflated stock price to raise fresh capital. Between 2020 and 2022, they raised $3.8 billion by issuing new shares at elevated prices. They used the money to pay off near-term debt obligations and extend their financial runway. The bankruptcy that had seemed inevitable 3 months earlier was suddenly off the table. The apes had saved AMC, but not for long. The $3.8 billion Reddit had helped raise looked like a war chest. It wasn't. It was a bandage on a wound that needed surgery. Here's the problem nobody wanted to say out loud. AMC's debt hadn't disappeared. It had been rearranged. The near-term obligations were pushed further down the road, but the total debt load was still enormous and growing. By 2023, AMC was carrying $4 billion in long-term debt, costing $450 million per year just in interest payments. Not paying down the principal, just the interest. $450 million a year, every year, before a single employee gets paid, before a single light bulb gets replaced, before a single bag of popcorn gets ordered. Meanwhile, the world had changed permanently around them. The Hollywood studios, desperate for revenue during COVID, had started releasing movies simultaneously in theaters and on streaming platforms. Disney released Soul, Raya, and Black Widow directly on Disney+. Warner Brothers released their entire 2021 film slate on HBO Max the same day as theaters. The studios were essentially training audiences that waiting 2 weeks meant watching at home for free. AMC screamed about it publicly. It didn't matter. The genie was out of the bottle. Then, in 2023, Hollywood gave AMC another blow it didn't need. The writers and the actors' strike combined to shut down film production for months. The content pipeline that theaters depend on, new blockbusters, new releases, reasons to leave the house, dried up. AMC's screens were running older films, smaller releases, anything they could find. Revenue dropped, attendance dropped. Adam Aaron kept performing Confidence. He launched new initiatives, partnered with Taylor Swift for her Eras tour concert film, a genuine hit that brought people back to theaters temporarily, announced new premium experiences, talked about the resilience of the cinema industry. But the quarterly earnings told the real story. In Q4 2025, AMC generated $104 million in operating income. Sounds decent. Then, they paid $123 million in quarterly interest on their debt. Net loss. Every single quarter, the debt was eating the business alive. The stock told the same story. The Reddit-fueled peak of $72 per share in 2021 was ancient history. By 2025, AMC was trading below $2. The retail investors who had bought at the peak to save their favorite cinema had lost almost everything. The hedge funds that had been forced to cover their short positions at enormous losses in 2021 had been replaced by a new generation of analysts running the same numbers and reaching the same conclusion. AMC's debt load is unsustainable. The apes had won the battle. Wall Street was winning the war, and the broader cinema industry wasn't helping. Cineworld, AMC's biggest global competitor, had already filed for bankruptcy in 2022. Regal Cinemas, the second largest chain in America, had gone through its own restructuring. The entire industry was contracting. The post-COVID recovery that everyone had hoped would bring audiences flooding back had been slower, smaller, and more fragile than projected. AMC hasn't filed for bankruptcy yet, but the math is getting harder to ignore. $4 billion in debt, $450 million in annual interest. A business that depends on Hollywood releasing enough blockbusters to fill 10,000 screens. A generation that grew up during COVID, watching everything on a laptop. And a stock price that has lost 97% of its value from the Reddit peak. Adam Aaron stepped down as CEO in early 2025. The man who had surfed the meme wave, embraced the apes, sold popcorn subscriptions, and kept AMC alive through sheer force of personality, handed the keys to someone else. The show, for now, goes on. But every quarter, the debt gets harder to service. Every year, the margin for error gets thinner. The Reddit army showed up in 2021 and did something genuinely remarkable. They saved a company that Wall Street had decided was already dead. They cost hedge funds billions of dollars and made the entire financial establishment look foolish for a moment. But they couldn't change the economics, and in the end, economics always wins. If you want to know what will happen in the future, subscribe.